there is a greater force that we get to tap into. And not only do we get to tap into it, it is in us. Everything about, for me is energy. Everything is frequency. And I will agree that you and I get that said to us a lot, is that you guys are just high energetic individuals. And I look at people, I'm like, there ain't no better way to be.
Mindset hackers, thank you so much for joining me here today. I have got a very special guest. She's going to be bringing some fucking fire on this episode. She's a total badass warrior, and she's somebody that I met about 9 months ago. You guys all know that I've joined a very high-level mastermind group where I get to be around some really big thinkers, and it exposes me to some connections that I just would have never found without this. Her name is Natalie Spaeth. She is a professional mindset coach. She's also a fitness coach, a content creator, and she is about as authentic as it gets. When she talks, she will raise your frequency and you will resonate with it. She will bring you into your true self. I'm so excited to have her here with me. It's such an honor. Natalie, what is going on, my friend?
Oh, Simon, thank you, brother. That was beautiful. I receive all of that. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. So thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we're going to blow some minds today because I think one thing is when we get together, we both raise each other's frequency. I know that I'm sure you get this all the time, but people always say, Simon, you're high energy. And it's something that I've had to cultivate too. I do have a natural level of energy that I bring into conversations or into sales or into coaching or into group coaching. But one thing I've realized is that the right frequency is almost like the cement needed to create a future reality that is absolutely pristine and so desirable. If you have the intent and if your frequency is dialed, it almost, they say the universe conspires to bring you whatever you want. I would take it a step further. I would say, like, when you have a high frequency, it's almost like you're co-creating with the universe. I feel like there's infinite possibilities out there already in the quantum field that are in existence. But when you lead with a higher emotion, a higher frequency, a higher vibration, things fall into place exactly how they should be. The tools that you need, the people that you need to be around. And I feel like that is why you and I are on this conversation together right now, is because you and I are on that same frequency. And we've come together to support people and help them manifest the dream future that they want.
Brother, you're speaking my language so to the soul. And it's everything about, for me is energy. Everything is frequency. And I will agree that you and I get that said to us a lot, is that you guys are just high energetic individuals. And I look at people, I'm like, there ain't no better way to be. Because ultimately, just like you said, when you raise your vibration and when you learn to have the tools to be able to cultivate how to do that, it's like you create the magic that you're desiring to happen in your life for you. And you and I love to go down these deep rabbit holes and talk about the universe and understand that there is a greater force at be, that we as humans having this, I should say beings having this human experience, get to tap into. And not only do we get to tap into it, it is in us. And that's the biggest missing piece that I think we as a society have forgotten about, is that we are so powerful and we have everything and all of the tools within us. It's just finding those, right people or things or places to start to unlock the coming home and the understanding and to me, I call it the remembering of who I am. And by going through this journey and coming together with you, brother, 9 months ago and being in the container that we've been in together, it has just leveled that vibration up even more. And it's funny that you bring in like vibration too. I was just telling my husband last night, I said, I don't know what it is, but I feel like if you put me under a microscope, I am just like electric. And I feel like this vibration, especially with, 2022, 22, 22, and, the full moon, and it just being this like interstellar year has been off the charts for the way that I physically am feeling. And, sometimes I say it's hard to even express it in human words of, like, people ask me like, well, what does that even feel like, Natalie? Like, how do you even get that? And to me, it's like when you just know, and you wake up, and it's like, instead of waking up feeling tired and, low energy and lethargic, and, maybe have some anxiety and things like that, I literally wake up 99% of my days like ready to take on whatever it is. And I had a beautiful client of mine one time tell me that she wakes up and she says, "Universe, please speak miracles through me and to me so I can go out into the world and change some lives." And when she said that, I was like, yep, that is going on my mirror. So every day it's like, universe, just speak the magic through me. Like, what can we create today? And sometimes that day might be, just vibing so high with my 2-year-old on the couch. And sometimes it's me, traveling and being at events and being on podcasts and working in groups and just helping people raise the vibration of this world. So I'm here for all of this, brother. I'm feeling it.
I love that. I can tell. It's kind of like the way you describe that is almost like you're possessed by the universe. You're a conduit, but not possessed in like the exorcist type of way, but possessed like you and I are here to serve a greater purpose. And we're co-creating with the universe. We're here to do our best. We're here to be the best people that we can so we can help other people do the same. I love that because it definitely gives you purpose. It gives you a mission. And it reminds me a lot. I'm going to drop this in really quick, mindset hackers. If you have not read The Surrender Experiment, that is a book that was written by the same author as Untethered Soul. He was a billionaire that became a billionaire by actually, he wanted to avoid it. He wanted to go start a meditation retreat and just get away from people. But he did what Natalie is doing right now and just kind of surrendered himself to the universe. And, whatever's in front of me, like, I'm not going to resist. If the universe has plans for me, I'm just going to let this go and see where it goes. It just so reminded me of what you just said there. And there's some powerful stuff that can happen when you realize that the universe is here to not just support you or to serve you, but to co-create with you. And that's what Natalie is talking about. Okay, here's what I want to dive into next, because this is something that I don't know the answer to, and I want to find out. And we're going to do this live in front of the internet. I got to know you about 9 months ago, and it took a little bit before you started speaking up. We were in Cabo San Lucas, and holy shit, the lion in you started to roar. But I don't completely know your backstory. I knew there was a transformation. I knew there's a journey. And I've seen some photos of some of that just by following you on social media. And then I've caught the tail end of it, and I've seen you grow and blossom and bloom into this amazing and powerful, energetic, high vibe, high frequency person that I know today, who is my friend, someone I'm so proud to know. But walk me through the entire story.
Oh, brother. Oh, my life, my life, my life. Well, it's funny because I always say it's our, it's it's the unlayering to get to the bottom of the core of who we are when I ask the question, who am I? And so my life, has been, it's been a roller coaster. And I guess I don't even know where I where to begin on this. But I mean, I guess, if I look back on my life, if I look at myself when I was in high school, I had, this almost kind of intimidated style of confidence. And I was loud and I was talkative, and I was kind of friends with a multitude of different people. And I remember though that people would always, kind of like get mad at me or say that I'm being too this or too that, or, maybe I shouldn't, speak my mind as often, or I need to be more quiet and do things like that. And that just never resonated with me. And then I remember it was like, junior, senior year when people are talking about, picking colleges and things like that. And I just remember sitting there being like, but why? So something my parents always told me was that ever since I could talk, I always ask why, because I always had this underlying feeling of like, there's always got to be another way. Why in society are we taught that we have to do things a specific way? And that just never resonated with me. And I remember I had some teachers tell me like, Natalie, you're not going to be able to make money or do anything if you don't go to a 4-year college. And I remember having the confidence enough to tell them, watch me. And I never went to a 4-year school. I ended up graduating high school, and I ended up going to hair school. And in between that year of transitioning out of high school into hair school was there was it was a big turning point for me, because I was allowing all of what everybody else told me I should and should not be to get to me. And I remember when I entered into hair school, I was like, I'm going to be the nice girl. I'm just going to be the nice girl. Like, I clearly am just too much for so many people, and I really want to make friends here. So I'm just going to be nice, and I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. And little backstory, being at school with God only knows how many women that are from the age ranges of 18 to 30. There was a lot of that wasn't easy, and I got bullied quite a bit in that, and that led me down a pretty dark path. I had moved out of my small town into a big city, and I ended up going through a breakup during that time, and that just kind of spiraled me into this low depression. And I ended up starting to do drugs, and I got heavily addicted to Adderall. And a little backstory on that for those who don't know: usually, if you are prescribed Adderall, you're taking anywhere between 10 milligrams to 30 milligrams. Some people are dosed with like 50 or 75 if they have really intense cases of like ADD or ADHD. And I got to the point where I was taking 150 milligrams of Adderall a day, and I wasn't sleeping for weeks on end. I wasn't eating. I was spiraling out of control. And there was a moment that I had fallen down this like big marble staircase that was leading into the basement of this hair school, because it was a kind of more pristine hair school, if you so to say. It was the Aveda Institute. So I don't know if you've heard of Aveda or not, but it's a big hair thing, natural hair company. But I fell down that staircase, and I remember I jumped up and I didn't feel a thing. And it was like somebody would have been hurt. There would have been like something broken, and I didn't have any bruises. I didn't have any marks. And I stood up and I said, holy shit, something's wrong. So this is not okay. Like, the fact that I just experienced that and I don't feel a thing in my body, I was numb. I numbed myself out, because I remember telling myself, I just wish I could take my mind off of my mind. And that's what led me down to continue doing the drugs. And so if we flash forward, I ended up moving back home because I knew I had a problem. And I stopped cold turkey that day. And I had to go through the ebbs and flows of the come down. And that was just really rough, really rough, coming off of that. And move forward a couple months, I found out that I was pregnant. And I, at that time, would have been like 18 years old. And I remember I thought it was somebody's, it was not. And mind you, I was probably at that point, maybe 75 pounds heavier than I am now. And when I found out, I thought like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm 18. And I knew that at the end of the day that I always told myself that when I chose to have kids, that I was going to give my children either a similar life to what I had, if not better. And I had that nice childhood where, you grew up, my parents are still married till today, lived in a small town, dad was a business owner, things like that. But I was the baby and I was the black sheep. And so I was the rebel of the family. I was the one that would smoke and drink in high school. I was the one that partied. I was the one that didn't get great grades. And, I screwed off, but I also had this feeling of like the way that my life was going wasn't right. And so when I found out that I was pregnant, that was a very traumatic experience. And my mother was, she had kind of pushed me towards the adoption route. And I remember sitting there not knowing what to do. I was 19 years old. I was just recovering from a drug addiction, and now I'm pregnant, and I didn't know who the father was. And so if we flash forward through that, I chose to gift my first son with adoption. And in that time frame, I wouldn't allow myself to feel again. I think I might have cried once when I was handing him over to the adoptive parents. And luckily, by the grace of God, I was able to choose the family that he went to. And some beautiful universal magic, the woman that, or the mother and the father that I had chose, they had endometriosis and they were not able to get pregnant. So I was like, yep, I want to gift it to them because, they just look like great people. And I was able to meet them beforehand and all of those things. And what happened was she actually ended up being an adoption therapist for children who were adopted. And so, oof, goosebumps right there as I tell this story every time.
And just really quick, I can relate to that on a deep level because, as you know, we adopted a boy too. We were so lucky that we were able to do that and give him an amazing life. So just I love that you said that, a gift. And thank you so much. I didn't mean to cut in there, but I just had to add that because it's really resonating with me right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, brother. And just more power to you because I know it takes a lot of strength to go through that in general, whether you are the one gifting or you are the one, adopting. It is not, unfortunately, the way our world is working right now and the way society is, the adoption process is a lot more difficult than it should be. And I understand for a reason why some of the things are the way they are, but it was to the point, I mean, this mother and father were on the wait list for like 10 years, and they had gone through many failed adoptions where they would get a baby. And that there is I think it depends state by state, but there is a time period between when the baby is born and the court date of when the parent actually signs away the parental rights. And in that time frame, they had a couple failed adoptions where the mothers came back and took the child back. And you could only, I mean, I know that you obviously have a similar experience like this. That would be absolutely devastating for people. So I knew, and I told myself at 18 years old that if I am choosing to do this, I am putting myself in, this is how I pictured it at 18. I'm putting myself in a roller coaster. And the moment I tell them that they are the parents of my child, it's like putting the strap of the roller coaster on and the roller coaster starts to move and you cannot get off. And there is going to be ups and downs and curves and twists, and it is going to be one wild ride. But at the end of the day, I knew in my heart of hearts who I was, like that was going to be my decision and I wasn't going to go back on that. And so of course, that was January of 2012, and we didn't have the court date until March. And so for 3 months, I had to go through the flow of, realizing what I had just went through. But after I had come home from the hospital, I wanted to go right back to work. And my mother was like, we need to put you in therapy. She's like, you haven't cried. And I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need to cry. Everything's okay. I'm cool. But I was still numb. And I had finally found a therapist who, again, universe always at work. We picked a therapist, unbeknownst to this, who also had gifted a daughter for adoption when she was 18. So, and we had no idea that she had done that until after a couple sessions. And so finally one day she looked at me and she's like, when did you cry? When was the last time you've cried? And I said, I couldn't tell you. She's like, the only thing I'm going to tell you is I want you to go home. And at some point in time, when you feel like it, I need you to cry. And I remember I went home and I tried to play the saddest music and I tried to watch the saddest movies, like to force myself to cry, and nothing would come up until honestly, like the biggest release was that court date. And I was sitting there, and mind you, I've got my mother and my father, I've got the adoptive parents, I've got the judge, who, go figure, was the church, like, he wasn't the pastor, but he was very heavy in the small town family church, who's the judge. And I have the attorneys, and the attorneys are asking me all about my sex life in front of all of these people. How many partners have I had? Did I know what I was doing? It was just this very traumatic experience. And I remember he had asked, I finally stood up on the stand and I looked at him straight in the eye, this attorney, and I said, I am doing what is in the absolute most best interest for this child. And if you deem it necessary to sit here and disclose my sexual life to everybody else, I don't know who you are, but I think you need to take a swift look in the mirror and understand that I am doing something amazing. And if you want to make this situation more difficult on me, I hope you can go to bed at night with that. And it was like, boom, court case done. The judge is like, I think we're good here. I think we're done. And that was the moment that I walked into my car and just whoosh, finally 3 months after the fact, and grieved and went through that process. And that was a big turning point for me at a very young age into not, and I, for me, it wasn't even like strength. It was like a have to, like there was no choice. Like this was me, and this was the choice. These were the choices that I made. And this is the result of those choices that I made. And, I never really allowed myself to fully embrace that. And so flash forward, I ended up getting into a relationship with a man who had just gotten out of the army, out of the Afghanistan, the Iraq war. And he was 101st Airborne Infantry Army. And he was the love of my life. I mean, I thought he was the cat's pajamas and the bee's knees. And, a few months into the relationship, there was a lot of verbal abuse, but I looked past that. And that verbal abuse started to turn towards more physical. And I remember we were trying to get him into the VA to get help, because I knew that this was coming from PTSD. I knew it was his trauma. And I tried to stick it out and I tried to stay, but I knew that there was a point in time that I had to put me first. And the last day that we had sat at the VA for like 10 hours a couple times, and finally we got him an appointment. And that day had come that he was meant to go. And I said, this day in my mind was going to make or break this relationship. And when I got home from work that evening, he came home and I asked him, I was so excited. I said, how did the appointment go? Like, I want to hear all about it. And he looked at me and he cracked a beer and he said, I didn't effing go. And that was the day I packed my bags and drove back to my parents and moved home. And through the evolution of all of that, I had to go through a lot of different curveballs. And so to kind of like, my life story, there's kind of a lot to it. So if you were to flash forward even more, I ended up working for my father and starting to gain a little bit more of my confidence back. But mind you, I was overweight. I was overweight most of my life. And I had, met my husband through work and got married, got pregnant. And then it was about 9 months postpartum. And mind you, there was, weight loss was always like my biggest thing. And I didn't understand why I struggled so much to lose weight, why I struggled with weight issues so bad my whole life. And I went to, I paid tens of thousands of dollars on diet plans and trainers and all the things. And I ended up buying a gym, thinking that if I own the gym, I will finally be able to lose weight, because I will have surrounded myself in that environment. So there is no excuse. And 4 years later, I still hadn't lost the weight. And so I was about 9 months postpartum. And I went, and it was January 8th of 2020, pre-COVID. And I went and weighed myself like I did every day, probably doing another diet. And the scale had gone up again. And I just broke, and I broke hard. And I finally threw my hands up into the air and I said, God, universe, whatever the hell is out there, like, I clearly need your help. I do not know how to do this on my own. And mind you, Simon, I was a certified personal trainer. I had taken nutrition courses. I could tell you all of what your body needed, all the ins and outs and everything. But I couldn't do it for myself, because the one thing I hadn't started to work on was my mindset. And so that day, after releasing all of that emotion, the next day I got up and I said, okay, today I'm just going to go for a walk. And I went for a walk, and it was like -8 degrees out, January 8th, 2020. And I'm like, if I can just go for a walk right now, then I have no excuse when spring hits, when summer hits and it's fall. So, and I just took it one day at a time. I didn't do anything crazy. I didn't do any crazy diet. I didn't go any crazy workout plan. I'm just going to start going for a walk. And then the next week I'm like, I'm just going to start drinking water. And then the next week I'm like, maybe I'm going to throw spinach on an egg McMuffin or something. Like, it was just these small little changes. But I remember asking the universe, I was like, when I go into the refrigerator, please work your magic through me to select the right foods that are going to best fit my body. when I don't have the strength to be able to make those decisions. And I just trusted. I said, I'm going to trust myself this time. And flash forward, obviously we had COVID. We had civil unrest. I'm close to the Minneapolis, St. Paul area where the George Floyd thing had happened. And so we had civil unrest very close to our house. I mean, we had marches in our small little town and it was a very chaotic time. We had the election, we had all the political crap going on, and my gym had closed down for 2 months. We had lost a lot of money too. And I just remember that the only thing I can control is myself. And I am going to continue to just control myself. And honestly, that journey was one of my biggest blessings throughout that year. But what had happened is I was so focused on the external, the weight, the way I looked, that when I ended up losing all the weight at the end of the year, I thought, that was going to be my ticket to happiness. And it wasn't. And so my husband and I's relationship was on the fringes, and it was bad. And there was a lot of things that had happened, and we were on the brink of divorce at the end of 2020. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I'm like, I finally lost all this weight. Like I should be feeling good about myself. I should be happy. I should be confident. And mind you, during the COVID, I had pivoted online because I had feared that, okay, well, if I own a brick and mortar, I don't necessarily have control over that. So I have to find a different way to make money, and so I figured online is the way to go. So I brought my coaching online back in 2020. And so flash forward, it was January of 2021 when I finally crumbled again. I had another one of those crumbling moments where I put my hands up in the air. I said, universe, I don't know what's happening in my marriage. I don't know why I'm so unhappy again. I thought I was doing everything right. Like, what is wrong? What is wrong with me? All of the things. And that day I looked at my husband, and mind you, my husband was there. It was me who was trying to walk out the door. It wasn't him. And obviously, it takes two to tango in a relationship, but I was the one that said, I'm done. I'm done. And, I wanted to be the victim. I wanted to blame everybody. I wanted to blame everything for all of my problems. And again, it was another one of those days, ironically, in January. I don't know what it is about me in January, but then I crumbled again, and I looked at him, and all I just kept getting was like, you need to trust and surrender and stay with your husband. Like, you need to stay through this. And so I ended up coming home one day, and I just fell on the kitchen floor, and I just started sobbing. And I just told him, I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. And he instantly booked a trip to Mexico. He's like, we're leaving. We need to get out of here. Like, we need to just go. Like, we need to get away from work. We need to find a sitter. Like, we need to just go, you and I. And we started therapy. And he was the one who actually found our mentor on a podcast before. He was the first one to find him, because that's who he was listening to when he thought he was losing his family. And so he introduced me to him, and he said, hey, I think you should check this guy out. He's really interesting. He's kind of helped me a lot, just listening to his podcast. And I was like, all right, cool. And, through that, he's like, oh, hey, he's got some like workshop thing on Facebook. You should check that out. He helps coaches. And I was like, oh, sweet. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Long story short, I ended up joining, and that's how you and I ended up meeting. And ever since then, I mean, it has been just an explosion of like, everything I've desired is starting to come true. And it has lit my life up like crazy. Now I have all this like love for who I am as a person. And it was a coming home, and it was a remembrance of who I am at the core root, without all the external BS that, gets layered on us throughout our lives. And I mean, brother, it has just been a magical ride, and I wouldn't change one millisecond of it for the world.
What's the secret sauce? Like, give my audience a look behind the scenes and tell them what happened. Why was there such a huge transformation? I mean, you inside of the larger community are really looked up upon as an absolute hero, a mentor, someone that people want to be like. There's some messy times. And when I see you now, our mastermind was called Kaizen, which is the Japanese word for constant and never-ending improvement. How did we make this transformation?
It's remembering our identity. It's remembering us. And for me, I think that, how we've had such a rapid transformation, I'm a firm believer, mastermind is taking two minds together to create the third mind, or what other people, call the third eye. And that, pulls in different energy from the powers that be together to help cultivate the transformation. And it was really truly learning how to be able to surrender to the darkness when the darkness would hit, is kind of how I look at it. When the low vibrations, when when things are kind of crazy and confusing and all of those things, that we're always going through transformation, even if we're unaware. I don't, when you say what it is, or what's that one thing that, why is it like work for us? I think it's collectively coming into a place where we feel so supported with no judgment to just be who we are.
It's this finding our childhood self. And we're in this container where we break down these walls of ego, right? Like we get built up thinking that we should be something, as Rob Dial calls it, the purple popsicles, the dirty shirts, the expectations that are placed on us by others. The 5 regrets of the dying. The number one regret is, I wish I had not lived a life based on the expectations of others, but a life true to myself. So we're in a safe space to get to meet the adult version of the child inside of us that so many of us have gotten away from, trying to match the expectations of society. Tell us more about that, because I know you were spitting some fire at the last Kaizen event about getting raw.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. I had a revelation in October, after one of our calls. I was standing in my kitchen and I had this massive revelation of myself when I was in high school. And I was, I was confident, I was intimidatingly confident, but I was confident coming from a place of fear. But I remember that confidence was still within me. And I had forgotten her when I moved away, and I tried to be the nice girl, and I tried to please everybody, and I tried to do all of those things. And when I remembered who I was back then and who I know that I am, that is in me, it was like once I got into a room full of people, it was like my spirit came alive in that moment. And I felt like that revelation of, I'm home. Like, I am home. Like, this is where my fire reigns. And when I got handed the mic, it was like, let's go, baby. Like, I could sit up here. Like, I remember like thinking our mentors, I'm like, guys, I don't even need you right now. Like, can I just talk? Like, can I just take the microphone and run this for you? Cause I am feeling it right now. And I remember as a little girl, I always was on stages. I was in this little thing in my tiny little town called Mini Musical. And I was like in 4th grade and I was singing solos. And I actually in high school, I was like the lead in one of like the biggest plays our school had put on. And I forgot that part of me. I forgot that I used to love to be on stage. I used to love to be in front of people. I felt so full and like just so powerful and just so me when I was in front of people. And being in Texas, it was like the second they started playing the music, I just danced, and like I was dancing all around the area. I was high-fiving everybody. Like, I was just in the zone. And I remember like standing there, I'm like, I am me. And the best part about it though, Simon, was like, I remember asking so many people, I'm like me, like I'm being me. And like, yeah, I'm probably like triggering some people here and there, but we worked through all that because that was the place to do it at. But it was like, I was like I get to be me. And like, I love myself. Like, I absolutely love myself. And by going through all the shit I've gone through in my life, in that moment, I realized like so many people came up to me and they're like, you're such an inspiration. We love you so much. You're so amazing. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, me? Like, I'm just fucking being me. Like,
Isn't that crazy? And audience, mindset hackers, I want you to tap into this, because sometimes you don't realize your own greatness until you see the reflection of what other people see in you. Sometimes you need that response. And my friends, this can happen to you too. So please don't just listen to yourself, listen to what others see in you.
I believe in the collective consciousness. We as a society, I we create the external reality and we create the internal reality. And there's, whatever we decide we want to think, we want to do, that becomes our reality. Therefore, I believe that right now we are in a massive awakening, that we together consciously, especially even just you and I having this conversation and sending out that vibration and that thought process of like, we are bringing togetherness. Like in my world, I only see unity. I only see wholeness. I only see everybody coming together and realizing that you are my brother, and that, the girl next door is my sister. And together, when I can get, when I get a woman that comes to me that, is struggling with whatever, and I can help her and I can get her to start feeling better about herself and start seeing the world through a different lens, a different scope, she then starts to wake up, and it's the ripple effect. And I firmly believe that that ripple effect is going out and creating a different reality. And I think we are in that shift today.
Natalie, you're so right about this. It doesn't feel good to be divided. I was thinking about wars. Nobody wins. I mean, there's maybe a side that loses a little bit more than the others as far as deaths or whatever, but nobody wins.
And brother, the one thing I want to say is, being in Texas, we all came from different, belief systems, from different, political backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds. There was, multiple different races, and what we are missing is unity and love. And what we forget is that our natural state of being is being in love. A new saying that I have is, as above, so below, let's go. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be there's going to be the polarity. There's going to be the north and south. There's going to be the light and the dark. There's going to be all of it. But the thing about it is that we create the hells that we live in our reality today. But I always like to conclude saying that we're going united. We're going to be in unity, because if I go, to my girlfriend's house and we talk about, the state of the world, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? All these things, like, what are we going to do? What kind of a vibration is that sending out?
So let's say that you were talking to somebody who's maybe where you were, 5-10 years ago. They don't see the light. They're struggling with weight. Maybe they're in a relationship, a toxic relationship, or experiencing some abuse in their life, or facing a very difficult situation. In 1 minute, what kind of advice would you give the younger Natalie if you were to go back in time and talk to her?
First thing I want to say is, you're not alone. You're never alone. And that you don't have to go through what you're going through alone. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, you have the power within you. You are the most powerful thing that resides on planet Earth. And you have the opportunity to cultivate and create whatever it is you want in your life. Though things are going to happen that are out of your control, the only thing that you can be in control of moving forward in your life is yourself. And by knowing that you can at least control yourself, you have all of the power to change the trajectory of your life in any way, shape, or form you want it to be. You do not have to be the victim of your circumstances. And the moment that you take a good look in the mirror and say, who am I? And how can I become the person that I want to be? How can I learn how to become home to myself? Is the moment change begins. Just with those small words of asking yourself, putting your hands up in the air, getting down on your knees and saying, I'm ready.
That is absolutely beautiful. Natalie, thank you so much for spending this time with me. It was so fun to go along, to just like, I could feel it. I'm just like, who cares? Just go with it. And we got in some really deep stuff there. Thank you so much for this conversation. Mindset Hackers. Oh, one last question. Where do people find you, Natalie?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is at I am Natalie Spaeth. That would be IAMNATALIESP. Spaeth, all one word. And then my Facebook is Natalie Spaeth, but I also have a free private group called the Warrior Co, where I go in there and we spit fire almost, a couple times a week and just try to bring as much value to you guys completely free of cost. So you can find me either on my Instagram, my Facebook, or in my private Warrior Co group.
Absolutely. And you are a warrior. Mindset hackers, please share this with somebody that you know that could use this conversation right now. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that. And I would love it if you drop a rating on my podcast. We've also got a YouTube channel where we're putting out some really cool content. That's my beautiful little girl with her gorgeous little baby lion roar. But I want you to go to the YouTube channel because we're putting out some really good content about reprogramming your subconscious mind. I would love to get Natalie on there to do a mindset movie. We're going to be doing short 3 to 4 minute videos to help you reprogram your mindset to work and do the heavy lifting on your behalf and make it a little bit easier for you to succeed in life. Thank you so much, Mindset Hackers. I will be with you on the next episode.